Welcome to a discussion about your life. It may well be the most important few minutes you have ever experienced, because we're going to talk about something that is actually out of this world in a very, very special way. We're going to talk about a certain experience which a few human beings have achieved here in this life. I'm going to give you a very simple definition of it, and then we're going to discuss it. But it's very important as we go ahead with the discussion that you try to see your connection, your personal connection with everything that we're going to talk about. Because it is vitally connected with your personal inner life. And we're going to start by giving you a sentence, a phrase. That sentence, phrase, words is self-awakening. Self-awakening. Now, when you use that term, it automatically implies that the individual himself, herself, is not yet awakened. And we're going to have to find out what that means. Now, to not be awake, to be asleep, means for you to be living the way you actually are right now. Am I accurately describing your life today, in the last week, if I say that you're very worried about your life, about yourself, and that you have a heavy spirit, and you have sought answers everywhere and you have never found them, and you thought that nice people were going to help you and nice, helpful organizations were going to do something for you, and so you joined them and associated with them, and you married them and you unmarried them, and you ended right back where you started. Oh no, not quite. You ended back a little more depressed, a little more despair than before, because do you remember how hopeful you were before you entered this alliance with another person, or before you went to college, or whatever you planned to do to uplift your life? Do you remember how hopeful you were, how excited you were? Where is it now? Where is that excitement that you took as happiness, wrongly took as happiness? Well, it's way back there in the ashes somewhere, isn't it? All gone. Not once, not twice, 100 times, 1,000 times. You were so sure that this was it, that you had it made. Ah, he was such a nice man. She's such a nice lady. That was such a nice group of people that I joined and associated with. And inwardly, listen to me, inwardly nothing happened. Nothing right happened. Nothing lifted 1 ounce of the burden that you have on your minds and spirits as I'm talking to you right now. This is what is known as being asleep. This is what is known as not understanding life at all. This is what is known as not understanding your own thoughts and your own emotions and your own reactions. To be asleep is to not understand, to be in a state of spiritual sleep. It also means to not understand what your future is all about. So we're going to talk about a state that is different from being in a state of psychic sleep. To blunder through life instead of walking through it with light. First of all, this condition known as being an awakened, conscious human being, first of all, it is very, very much concerned with you as an individual, very individualistic. Look what we have already. All those people who were going to help you in the past, all the groups, all the books, all the education you were going to get, all that has to be set aside because this is something about you. Altogether you. Now you can't go around anymore. Don't you dare go around anymore thinking that anyone else can help you, because they can't. They never have, and you know it. Instead of being a source of fright to you, of anxiety, that should be one of the happiest statements you've ever heard in your life. And I'll tell you why. Because when you get rid of everything that is false, you have made room for something that is true for the first time in your life, and that's how things can start to happen that are different for you. When you have exhausted all your resources, that is a beautiful state, not a fearful one. Because you are beginning to throw yourself back on yourself. Now I understand quite clearly that when you throw yourself back on yourself, you don't understand what that means. Because you say, I've been doing this or that all my life. Yes, you have, in the wrong way. You've been throwing yourself back on your old set of habits, throwing yourself back on all your negative spirits and attitudes, all your heavy ways. You've been throwing yourself back on that, and what results do you expect except to come back to the same place where you started eventually? So that it is a good thing, and see this from the start, it is a good thing for you to be thrown back on yourself, not having anyone, not having anything, not having anything that you've ever depended upon before. Come on now. It's failed you, hasn't it? Everything you've tried, you know that. You can't listen to this talk and continue to kid yourself and get anything out of it. Remember the principle of simply being honest about the way you are, about the way you think, about your feelings. Be honest about that. That in itself will drive out all the false methods that you've tried. Get rid of all the wrong thoughts and ideas that you're clinging to, hoping that they are going to do something for you. They won't. I will guarantee you absolutely that any past method that you have tried to set yourself free of yourself, I will guarantee you, if they failed in the past, they will fail in the future, because failure is built into them. Again, all this failure that you've experienced in the past is part of this spiritual sleep that we're talking about. To be thrown back on yourself and to stay with it, to not rush out and try to find an answer outside of yourself, to stay with it, to go through the experience, to suffer in a new way, because you're no longer falsely comforting yourself with talking with someone, with asking them questions. You're no longer doing that. You're sticking with yourself. And you're sticking with yourself knowing that you don't know the answers, and that is true. All your past references to yourself have failed you, as we've already seen. Self-awakening, a true, authentic spiritual life, begins the moment you stick with yourself, refusing to go back to your old ways, either inner or outer, refusing to go back to them, but staying with it to see what new experience will come to you. I'll guarantee you that it will. After you've gone through a lot of shaking, a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos, walking in the fog for a long time, if you will absolutely refuse to go back to your old sources, something new will happen to you. And you'll know what it is when you experience it. And it will be the beginning of light, the beginning of a very, very rare experience for human beings. And you can be one of them to experience it if you follow along to everything that we're going to go into. The state of self-awakening, inner enlightenment, the same thing. That state is also invisible. See, and that presents a problem at the start, only because you don't understand it. I said that this new condition we're talking about is invisible. You've noticed, because we have senses, how we look into the world, and we look at anything for aid. We look at the billboard for excitement or for amusement, or you look at television or a book. You can see the whole world and feel the whole world with your senses. You can see the visible world, and so we've become so accustomed to depending on that because we can understand it, can't we? We can understand another human being. We can understand a book. We can understand a lecture. We can understand things with our senses. Easy. But when you're told that authentic help that leads to self-awakening, authentic help is from the invisible world, where are you going to start your thinking on that? You see, you have never done it before. All right, fine, so what? You always have to do everything for the first time, whether it's out in that world or the inner world, so you can begin to think, well, all right. The man said that the work has to, this new work has to be inside of me, and it has to be invisible. Now, what does that mean? Well, aren't your thoughts invisible? Aren't your feelings invisible? You can feel them inside of, but you can't see them. I want you to know that if you go along with this to the very end of your studies, of your self-investigation, I want you to know that this invisible world inside of you, where true help comes, that this invisible world will be more real to you than that automobile out there, or that tree, or that moon, or that sun. It'll be more real because there'll be a connection between you and everything else in the world. So look where we are so far. We have seen that the world itself, how about your world? You answer to yourself as I talk to you. We've seen that the world itself is a pretty dreary place, pretty uncertain place, a pretty unhappy place for most people. And I ask you, what is your life like? We've seen that this is the way it is. And I've told you that certain human beings, men or women, who wish can begin to live a different kind of life, which we call awakening from slumber, awakening from inner sleep. You can do it if you follow the rules. There are rules just as definite as the rules of a football game, rules of cooking. If you follow the rules, you will get the results. Now, let me tell you an illustrative story that will bring us up to date on everything we've covered up till now. There was a man who was sort of like you, like every other man and every other woman in the world. There was a man who couldn't find what he wanted in order to make him happy, who couldn't find what he thought he needed in order to give him an inner security. Couldn't locate it. And like you, he went all around the world, inner world, outer world, trying to find something that would make him feel comfortable, that would take away the sense of fright. And he never found it, just as you have never found it. You have not found it, and you know it, and I know it. So he searched around a little bit more, and he finally found some people who were called experts. And so he went to a big building where the experts were and went on into the big office. And the experts said, why, most certainly, we're delighted you came. We can help you find what you want. Of course, it will cost you money. We are professionals here, and I'm sure you'll want to pay us for our services. And the experts named the price, which was pretty high, pretty stiff, and it shocked him when he saw what he had to pay. What are you paying for what you're doing now? Look what you are paying for thinking the way you are thinking. By the time we're through here, I'll show you how to stop paying the price. So they said, now, here's the situation, sir. You want to get things you can't get. You want to get things that satisfy you. Fine. That's what we're here for. Now, there's an island which you can find, island way out in the ocean, which you can find, and when you do, on this island will be everything you want. All your goals will be met. All your questions will be answered. All you have to do is go to this island, and there it is. You'll be happy. You'll be satisfied. You'll find what you've been looking for all your life. Oh, he thought that was great. At last, someone had come right to the point. Someone knew that he wanted all these things. And for a fee, which was pretty high, but that's all right. If I can just get what they say I can get, that'll be great. Well worth it. So he listened to further instructions, which were as follows. Sir, you go down to the surf, down the ocean there at the pier, and there's a boat there. Get in the boat, and that's all you have to do is just sort of shove yourself away from the dock, and that's all you have to do. Just sit there, and the current will do the rest. Bring some books with you, bring your lunch with you, bring anything you want, because now you listen to this deception I'm telling you about. All you have to do, sir, is sit in the boat, and you'll be carried to where you want to go without any effort on your part at all. You can just relax and trust the current. That is our key phrase. We tell everybody who comes here, trust the current. The way the ocean moves will just carry you to where you want to go. You don't have any responsibility. You don't have anything to do. As a matter of fact, if you want, you can bring the blankets and the pillow and lie down in that boat and just dream about the great fortunes that are coming your way eventually when you reach your destination. Ah, great, he said. And he paid the money fast before they raised the price and got on down to the boat, got in it, brought along all the things they suggested he bring, got in the boat, pushed it away from the dock, and started to dream his life away just as you do. Do you know that you're not living in reality at all? But you're living, I said, dream state, sleep state. And what goes along with sleep but dreams? Dreams of what? Gold and glory and women and men, all the things you desperately yearn for in order to fulfill you, and when you get them, 3 days later, you want something else, right? I've described your life. Man got in the boat. The very, very foolish man who paid all that price got into the boat and dozed a little bit, read a little bit, snacked a little bit, and had high hopes that in just a short time, everything would be okay. Always notice that he's putting it in the future just as you do. Did it ever occur to you that you could be happy right now as you're seated here, as you're listening to this talk? Why don't you be happy now instead of waiting? How come you're always waiting for something good to happen to you? Have you noticed it never comes to you? Well, it never came to the man either. Here he is now, out in the middle of the ocean, excited, looking forward to something. You see, and when you look forward to something, at that moment you're unhappy, aren't you? If you were happy, you wouldn't look forward to anything. But here he is out in the ocean, but something happened that disturbed him. And what happened that he looked around the ocean and he saw all kinds of other men and women in their boats doing exactly the same thing he was doing. And he even resented the competition. What if they get there first? What if there's a limited supply of happiness and they beat me to it? And he had very, very negative thoughts, to put it mildly, toward all the other people in the boat. He was angry toward them, resentful that they were out there. So his boat drifted on and on. Finally, he got a little bit discouraged because he didn't get what he wanted. So he went back, finally got back to shore and went back to the office again and asked them about it. And do you know what they told him? I'll tell you what they told him. They said, trust the current. Sir, you must have faith, you must believe, you must trust. That's all you have to do and you'll reach your destination. And they took a lot more money from him. And the poor, foolish, gullible man who had abandoned his own intelligence went down and he tried again. And when he didn't get anywhere out in the ocean, he came back and they said, trust the current. And they were all dressed up in suits and they had nice smiles on their faces. And he wanted to be angry with them, for he began to wonder if they were deceiving him. But they looked so nice and pleasant, he didn't think he'd better. So he went back again, tried again and again. He reached the point where you, ladies and gentlemen, are going to have to reach where instead of having confidence, instead of trusting anything or anyone, you have lost it completely, which is exactly what truth wants you to do so that it can begin to operate in your life. Here he was out in the boat. He could no longer trust the current because he had the beginning intelligence to see that it wasn't indeed taking him anywhere, that he was just drifting and repeating catchphrases over and over in his mind. Trust the current and all will come out well. It wasn't coming out well. And so his mind began to work better, improve its operation. And he began to think, well, when one thing doesn't work, maybe an alternative will work. And he thought long and hard because he was out there for a long, long time. And here's what the alternative was that finally came to him. He'd put a rudder on the boat, and he'd make the effort of building his own sail. And he would begin to think about the destination from a different viewpoint. How many times have you got exactly what you demanded on that mythical island, which doesn't exist, by the way? How many times have you got what you wanted in imagination? You got that marriage. You got that friendship. You got that raise in pay, and you still drifted. Well, anyway, after a long, long time of working in a new way, he found an island, all right, but listen to how strange this is. Strange and marvelous. And if you want to know what's strange and marvelous about it, do it for yourself, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. When he arrived on that island, he no longer wanted what he thought he wanted. It was a place that was entirely different because he was different. He began to see that all his anxieties, listen to this, even his anxieties were very valuable to him. All his yearnings to find something different, the very feeling was valuable to him, and he finally saw that he had to give up. He had to voluntarily give up his anxiety in order to reach something different and new, which he finally did. I'll give you another short little story here. A man had a stone house, which was the envy of everyone. And everyone would come up to him and say, how did you build this marvelous stone house? So he said, I'll tell you what, I'll tell you how to build your own. You can have the same fine, solid stone house I have. Go out in the desert and the hills and bring back one rock and put it down on your lot. Do that, and then come and see me again. One man came, he instructed him to do that. And instead of going and getting the one rock as instructed, the man came back for more instructions. And the man who had built the marvelous stone house said, now look, you came back for more instructions instead of obeying me. I told you to go out, get one stone out in the hills there and bring it back. You do that, I am not going to give you another instruction until you obey the one I gave you. Finally, the man understood. You have to act upon the knowledge given to you, the information. You have to act upon it. So the man went out and got 2 stones, 3 stones, 4 stones. Finally, he had something else. Now, what's the nature of the house you're living in? Pretty dark, pretty dreary, isn't it? Will you listen and understand? You must obey higher instructions. And I will promise you something absolutely if you do. That you of yourself will understand everything that we've talked about. You will understand where you were this very first time you heard all about the self-awakening and the state of sleep. You will understand that you were indeed a human being who didn't understand. And finally, your understanding will be much higher than that. It will be the understanding that you are now where you should be. Where you should be, because this is the purpose for which you were put here in this world, to wake up. So I tell you finally,